Today we're going to look at a transportation problem. Remember, our goal here is to work with function equations and see how they can help us learn more about functions and whatever it is the functions are studying. In this particular context, we have a transportation company, and they bring people 80 or more, charter a bus to go somewhere. And what it says is the rate per person is determined by a formula, and n is greater than 80, so that makes sense because it says 80 or more people, greater than or equal to 80. In this formula, essentially, you subtract 80 from n, multiply by 0.05, and subtract that from 8, and that's going to tell you what rate is. So before I read any more about what I'm supposed to do in this function, or with this function, I'm going to read the final sentence. It says rate is given in dollars. It actually should be dollars per person, and n is the number of people. So I'm trying to understand my variables. This is rate, that's dollars per person, and n is the number of people. I just need to think about this for a little bit. So I have my independent variables, people on the trip, and the price, that is how much they charge each person, apparently depends on how many people go on the trip. So I need to figure out how does that work. So I start by picking 80 people. Say we have the minimum number of people going on this charter bus, then how much would it cost per each person? I use the formula that's given, which says 8, subtract a nickel from 80 minus 80. We know 80 minus 80 is 0, times anything is 0, so it's going to be $8 per person if 80 people sign up for this bus trip. Now, if we had 90 people, that would be 10 more people, which implies that the price is going to drop according to this rate. And it seems like we lost 50 cents per person because we have more people to spread out the cost. And another time we had $7 per person after another 10 people. So it appears to me that there's a constant rate here. That is, we lose 50 cents for every 10 people added to the trip by spreading out the cost. Now, at issue here, now that I finally figure out what's going on, and what I got going on is a connection for the number of people who sign up for a trip is going to determine how much each person charges for the trip. But in part A, it's asking me to write the revenue. That's not the same as the rate, even though it starts with the same letter, which is why, by the way, I used P over here for price instead of R for rate, because I read the problem ahead of time and knew I was looking for revenue R. I want to make sure I'm using different variables for different things. R represents the revenue, and if you don't know, you can Google the meaning of the word revenue, but the short answer is revenue is net income. It's how much money you take in. In this case, I need to figure out how much money I would take in depending on how many people go on the trip. So here's what I have is like a chain of events. I find out how many people sign up for the trip. That's going to tell me how much each person pays. And once I know how many people or how much every person pays, then I can figure out how much money I'm going to take in. So using common sense, if I had 90 people on the trip and the cost was the cost was $7.50 per person, if we take each of those 90 people pays $7.50, I would get a revenue of $675. Similarly, if we had 100 people on the trip, it would cost $7 per person, and that $7 per person times 100 people is a total of $700. So even though the rate gets lower, each person is paying less to have 100 people go on the trip, we make more money because we have 10 extra people going. So we have $25 extra even though we charge less per person. Continuing on then, I could actually generalize that if we took the number of people and multiplied it by the rate, we would get the revenue. Put it in symbolic terms, if I took n times p of n, I would get r of n, the revenue function. Finally, down here at the bottom, n times p of n can be expressed as 8 minus blah blah blah, all this stuff. So I replace p of n, I substitute it with its actual equivalent value, and that gives me a formula for revenue. Now recall, this is the formula for revenue, but it does look a little clunky. So I had an Algebra 1 class before. I'm going to use my Algebra 1 skills to clean this up. The first thing I recognize is I can distribute the 0.05 into the n minus 80 to get negative 0.05n plus 4, which simplifies 8 plus 4 is 12. So now we take the number of people times 12 minus a nickel times the number of people. Distribute the n, and we have a clean equation that 12 times the number of people, subtract the number of people squared, times 0.05, and subtract that. Then all of a sudden we're going to have the total amount of revenue. This equation seems weird to me. I don't get it. But what did make sense to me was this, that 100 people paying $7 per person raises $700. To test to see if this equation is indeed valid, I'm going to substitute 100 for n in it, make sure that the equation is giving me what I want. And it turns out, to no surprise, it matches. $700 using common sense matches the $700 using my function equation. Now that I trust my function equation, I can start killing it. First of all, killing it. I already figured out 675, and I just now verified that it works for 700. So now I'm just going to do some extra ones. We got 110. Substitute that in for n, and we get $715. So here we had a $25 jump, then a $15 jump. Let's see what happens now. We get $720. So we only made an extra $5 by having 10 more people come. So it seems like we have some diminishing returns here. I'm going to do one more. We got 130, calculate it all out, and we get 715. Now at this point, I'm going to pause and reflect, because when I see this, I see a parabola. Anytime you get a variable squared, it seems to come out parabolic, at least in my experience, and I think it's going to actually go up. That is, the revenue will go up and then come back down again. In fact, I could even see some symmetry here. Look at this, 675, go up 25, go up 15, go up 5, go down 5. I'm guessing the next one's going to be 700 and then 600. Well, it says 45, but we'll make that 675. Just like that. There. So that's what I was asked to do, but and it says, what can you conclude? I have to make sure that I've answered the question, so I go back and look, and it says, what can you conclude? I can include this is an important concept. That is to say, the company should have wrote this ahead of time, shoot for 120 people to maximize, oops, I should say people to maximize revenue. And if you wanted to bolster this, it would certainly be within the realm of possibility to sketch a graph and plot the points and show how the trend is parabolic and how the important thing is we need to have 120 people go if we want to make the most amount of money possible in revenue on this particular trip. Hope that was helpful. Have a great day.